What's going on, everyone? So yesterday we got the reports that Rajon Rondo was being considered for a potential assistant role to be added to the Lakers bench, which I am super excited for. I think that is a no-brainer to me. No matter who they end up hiring as the head coach, no matter who they end up rounding out the rest of the bench, just to have him on the bench as a guy that is not afraid to call out LeBron, a guy that LeBron respects, a guy that is one of the best basketball minds we have ever seen in the league, a guy that is well respected by players, a guy that doesn't take any nonsense. He could be like our Jason Kidd was in the 2020 season, right? So I really like the idea of adding Rajon Rondo to the bench, however it shapes up. Well, we also got reports that Scott Brooks is also another candidate that is being kind of evaluated to be added to the bench. Now, for being honest, he's somebody I didn't even really think of. Didn't really think about. I think in a live stream we touched on him. I think somebody asked me about Scott Brooks or something, but he kind of was just kind of afterthought. It's been a while, right? I don't hate that idea at all. Right? Not as the head coach. He's not being considered for the head coaching position, but he's being considered as an assistant. Sign me up. Honestly, this is a guy that was a coach of the year, was numerous, coach of the months or whatever, was well respected, was looked at as one of the premier coaches at the time. And, it just kind of didn't work out, as you've seen with plenty of coaches in the league. But he's a guy that has head coaching experience. He's a guy that's had to deal with egos and stuff. I think you can make an argument he might be the best as the lead assistant, right? So, again, chances are they're going to hire JJ Redick as the head coach. Fine, right? I've talked about it, how I'm for it. I know some people are kind of on the fence. Some people are like, no. Some people are yes. However you feel, more likely than not, that's looking how it's going to shape up. Whether you like the idea or you hate the idea, the reality is that that's probably the case. Now, maybe, you never know. Nothing's final until it's final, but all signs are pointing towards that. So, them kind of looking at assistants to round out the bench also is another signal that they already have their guy pretty much ready to go. And you're already hearing JJ Redick starting to talk about all this coaching stuff. He did something with Nick Nurse and all that. So it's just, I think it's pretty blatant at this point. Again, I've been wrong before. I could be wrong again. We will see. But regardless, one of the things that I've talked about heavily, if JJ Redick is going to be the head coach, is you got to really round out that bench nicely and put him in the best position possible. The plan with Darvin Ham was to get a lead assistant as a former head coach and kind of round out the bench. Basically, the Lakers were going to do the job for Darvin Ham, and ultimately they let Darvin Ham, not let it, but let Darvin Ham go and create his own bench, and he struggled, right? And you saw the issues, where originally the plan was, hey, let's go get a former head coach to be there to kind of help guide him and hold his hand a little bit, right? Looks like the Lakers' plan is we're not going to let JJ Redick get whoever he wants. Now, I'm sure JJ will have a say. I'm sure JJ, they've talked to him about hey, would you rather have, Borrego or Cassell? Which of those guys would you rather have, right? I'm sure that there's some, dialogue, but I'm sure there are criteria. Hey, you've never even been an assistant. At least Darvin Ham had been an assistant, right? You've never been an assistant. We need to make sure we round this bench out nicely. And so I like the idea of let's say you miss out on Borrego, you miss out on Cassell. Even if you don't, even if one of them are willing to come and be an assistant, I still don't hate the idea of Scott Brooks. Now, Borrego's been a head coach before, but Scott Brooks, in my opinion, he's just had more experience, right? Well, it's not an opinion. It is. He's had more experience. So to me, it's okay, let's say JJ Redick is your head coach. You got Scott Brooks. Let's say you want to bring in Borrego. Fine, bring in Borrego. Go with, you could go with, I'd probably bring Phil Handy back still. I like the idea of Phil Handy. And then have Rajon Rondo in an assistant role. Maybe even as Rajon, you know what Rajon Rondo might be great in? I'd like him to be kind of with the players and stuff, but more that I think about it, I didn't even think of this in the Rajon Rondo video. But you have the assistant whose job is to just basically break down the film and watch and make the calls on challenges and stuff. I think Rondo would be great at that, right? Obviously you want him engaged and him involved and stuff, but right, when he's in there, I would love to have him his job is just to watch and break down the game, right? Like that's all he's doing. He's just sitting there just like watching everything, watching those little tablets. Okay, like this play happened. Okay, hey, no, don't challenge it. Leave it, right? Or hey, no, we need to get that challenge, right? Like I think he'd be great in that type of role, but keep diverting to Rondo. It's just I like the idea of Rondo, but sticking with Scott Brooks, I like the idea of Brooks as like your lead assistant, right? You get an adult, you get a former head coach, you get a guy that's had to deal with egos before, a guy that has an understanding, a guy that was respected and loved. I mean, even Russell Westbrook, right? Like, so it's just I don't hate the idea of bringing in Scott Brooks. I've talked about bringing in like a Terry Stout or somebody that can kind of be the guidance for JJ. Right? Now, JJ could be great for all we know, right? But it would still be nice to just have that guy that JJ can kind of default to at times and go, hey, like this situation, what do you think about this? Like, what are your thoughts, right? And just have another basketball mind, right? To me, it boils down to just rounding out the bench properly. It's something that I keep trying to hit on. Because again, you look at that 2020 bench, that was a super team. Like, our bench was probably better than the roster. I mean, you had Frank Vogel, right? And all of his defensive schemes and just his ability to utilize bigs and all the things that he's great at. Then you had Lionel Hollins, right? Then you had JJ Redick. Then you had Phil Handy, right? You had all these brain trusts that had all been head coaches, right? Not Phil Handy, but Jason Kidd. Jason Kidd had been a head coach for 2 teams prior. The only reason he wasn't a head coach was because of some off-court stuff, right? Otherwise, he probably would have still been a head coach. Now look at him. He's in the conference finals, right? A game away from being in the NBA finals. So you had Jason Kidd. You had Lionel Hollins, again, another very experienced head coach that had some success. Then you got a guy in Frank Vogel, again, another experienced head coach that had success, right? You had Jared Dudley on the bench, who, yes, he wasn't a coach, but he was, right? Like he was the extension of the coach. He was working with players. He was more of like a player coach than anything else, like a development coach. So he was massive. You just had all these brain trusts. And then you add in Rajon Rondo and you add in LeBron James as players. Nobody was beating that team, right? To me, like, let's kind of get back to that. Right? Like, obviously, you need the players to play. It doesn't matter how good of a coaching staff you have, right? Because the coaching staff isn't the one playing and actually has to show up and play the game of basketball, right? But to me, if you can have that just A1 coaching staff that are all kind of coming together, we saw what that impact was and how we were just so far ahead of everyone else. And even in those series, people tend to forget, right? Like people love to talk, like all the Laker haters and stuff love to talk about how all the Lakers walked in it. The Lakers were picked. Everybody picked everyone but the Lakers. The Lakers were supposed to lose to who? Was it Portland in the first round? Right? Because Portland was too hot and Dame was on a tear and they matched up really well and they weren't going to be able to defend them and blah, 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 blah. And then, boom, ran through them. Then it was Houston. Oh, Houston's going to spread them out too much. How are they going to stop Russell Westbrook and James Harden? That rim pressure is too much, right? They shoot too many threes. They're too high-octane offense. The Lakers aren't going to be able to score enough to keep up with them. And what happened? Boom, ran through them. Denver's too big. They got too many versatile wings, right? Because that was when they had like Jeremy Grant and stuff like that. Like, and they were just like, oh man, this team, they're too good. They're too talented. Jokic, he's this incredible big body. That's a type of, like, oh, I'm picking them. Lakers probably losing 6. Boom, ran through them. Right? Got to the finals. Oh, Miami, man, they're boom, ran through them. Right? Like, people forget the Lakers were not looked at as like the bona fide favorite, even though they were the best team in the league in like every metric. They were the best overall record before the bubble, all of that stuff, right? But you saw game in and game out all of those changes. Like, okay, they lost game 1 in pretty much every series and then just won 4 straight because it was like, here's the fill out game. All of the basketball minds are all computing and they're just, right? And then it's like, okay, we know how to beat them. And that was it. And then they just didn't win after that. Right? Like nobody could beat them after that. And it was like, that is what happened every single time. And to me, a lot of that, I think, was just like all these great basketball minds kind of coming together and talking and going, hey, no, we got to do that. Hey, what about that? No, 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 no. Like, that's not the approach. This is the approach. Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what I mean? And just like you had these like checks and balances. And I think that that's what I want to see the Lakers do this year with the coaching staff. So bringing in a Scott Brooks, right? Having, JJ as the head coach, Brooks as the lead assistant. If you want to bring in Borrego or Cassell, sure, you can bring them in, right? Bring in, a Phil Handy, and then bring in Rondo to kind of round out that bench, be that basketball mind, maybe even work the tablet, and he can be in charge of the challenges and stuff, because I think he could do an excellent job in that regard. But, it's just kind of a thought. But I like the idea. What do you think? As always, this is a discussion. I pass the question on to you. Let me know your thoughts and opinions down in the comments below. What do you think? How do you feel? What are your thoughts? Do you like the idea of bringing in Scott Brooks and having him being one of the assistants? Do you think no, like kind of let him be? Again, he would be as an assistant, not as a head coach. So just keep that in mind. But again, love your thoughts and opinions, how you feel, down in the comments. That being said, if you haven't liked this video, hit that like button. Helps me a lot. Helps me enjoy these types of videos, and I truly appreciate it. Not subscribe to the channel. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the bell notifications. Appreciate y'all. See you in the next one. Thank you.